Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next Daring Cities on accelerating action for the climate emergency. And our topic for the day is aligning national and subnational reporting for the European Union, our cities mission in focus. Let me introduce you to some of our fabulous speakers for the day, very daring speakers. Maria Rodriguez, who is the executive coordinator of Cidades pelo Clima, researcher and member of the Scientific Council of IN Plus Center for Innovation, Technology and Policy Research. She has a PhD in Engineering and Industrial Management, granted by Instituto Superior Técnico, partially conducted in Carnegie Mellon University, USA. Santu Karhinen, our next speaker, is an environmental economist with 10 years research experience. He specializes in regional climate work and emission calculations, leading Finland's municipal greenhouse gas inventory calculations, both territorial and consumption-based, and scenario tool development. He has managed academic, regional development, and government projects and published peer-reviewed research and professional reports. Our third panelist and speaker for the day is Svea Heinemann. She's a built environment specialist, and her work spans sustainable urban development and place-based innovation to tackle climate challenges locally. 3 years ago, Svea joined Net Zero Cities as part of ICLE Europe as a city advisor to support mission cities to achieve their ambitious climate targets. Svea holds architecture degrees from TU Berlin and MIT. Nicholas Frankart, our fourth panelist and speaker, is an analyst at Concito, an independent Danish climate think tank. Nicholas works with supporting cities and local governments in planning, implementing, monitoring climate action. In particular, Concito is a founding member of the Danish Climate Alliance, supporting all Danish municipalities in developing mitigation and adaptation plans, as well as Denmark's national platform for the EU mission on climate neutral and smart cities. I am Nupur Prothi. I am a senior climate expert with ICLE Europe with a background in urban planning, landscape architecture, and heritage conservation, currently working on the Net Zero Cities platform of the EU Cities mission. So why are we here? What was the idea of setting this up today? We are trying to look at what should be the future of aligning between national and subnational monitoring, reporting on both climate mitigation and adaptation. And why did we select this topic? We know urban areas are responsible for over 70% of global greenhouse gas emissions and are at the forefront of both climate impacts, actions, solutions. Then, how is it that only 27% of the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions, include strong urban content? Only 27% globally, as per a UN Habitat report. So this is why we thought we should put this up as a topic today, especially as we cross the 10th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, for which this UN Habitat report was actually carried out. Today, our panelists will tell us how we can do this. So I'm going to hand over the floor to you, Maria, to start on your experience with Portugal. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the invitation. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about our approach to monitoring climate action of the cities, and I would start, if you could please, the next slide. I would start briefly what is Cities for Climate, or Cidades pelo Clima in Portuguese. So it's a network of cities and regions that together commit to climate neutrality before 2050. And this union of initially 20 members, because we are expanding, they represented it at the beginning 47 municipalities, which means 40% 30% of the population of mainland Portugal, and 30% of greenhouse gas emissions also in mainland Portugal. So it's although 20 looks small, it's 20 members, but to our regions, which has several municipalities. So, and we are now expanding. Next slide, please. So talking a little bit about something that, so the network has, the members are the cities at the municipalities and the regions. And we at IN Plus, we are the technical secretariat. So we are putting in place all the activities within the network, both at political level and then at technical level with the teams from the municipalities. And one thing that we needed for sure was to have the same playing level field for all the cities. So to compare the cities with the same methodologies, because especially in what regards inventory of greenhouse gas emissions. So each city was following different approaches, and even for the same city, several providers were giving different inventories. So we felt the need to create a common ground for every city, not only the members, but also the other cities and the other municipalities in Portugal, mainland Portugal, because we have two island systems, but they are not included here yet. So what we did, we followed an international methodology. So the methodology that is also being used by C40 cities, by the World Resource Institute. These were the developers actually of this methodology, and it's the citywide protocol for putting up these inventories. So we started, and also it's not only following these methodologies, but it's also to use official data so that we can be very sure about what we are doing. So we are using data that it's from national statistics sources, and namely the energy entity and also the environmental entity. So we are using this official data. And we are also applying verifiable assumptions that sometimes we have to, and in this way we are with the same principles developing this inventory to every city. So what we did is to have an online tool that can be accessed by anyone. And we are giving this dashboards of emissions, so you can see the emissions per year. So since the official data came out, which was in 2008 until now, we have all the time a series of inventories. We have per sector, we have per greenhouse gas, and also we can have it in absolute terms. I'm sorry, the image has the Portuguese version because we don't have an English version in fact of the two. But in any case, what we have is total emissions per capita, emissions per VAB and so on. So, and we developed this tool. So the protocol, the GAG protocol has several levels of complexity. We are still in the basic approach, but we are now evolving to the Basic Plus approach, so which will give us other dimensions of the greenhouse gas emissions in each territory. Also, we are looking at what the cities should be responsible and accountable for. So we are now following a methodology and also cooperating with the National Environmental Agency to have a separation between what are the emissions that are in these dispersed sectors and what are the emissions that are in the market, in the European carbon trading market, so that we can separate and understand what's really on the hands of the cities. So this is the work that we're doing. We're very happy about this, but remember that official data, and this is a problem for everyone, official data only comes with 2 years lag. So what we have is looking backwards always. So how do we can further help the cities to understand how the policies they are implementing are impacting their pathway towards climate neutrality. So next slide, please. And the Net Zero City Call, the enabling city transformation, that was in October. So we submitted this proposal that was successful, involving the 3 mission cities that we have in Portugal. So Guimarães, Lisbon, and Porto. Guimarães is also next year's European Green Capital, so it's a very nice group of cities, and we are developing an ad hoc emission tool that we can look at, so have a perspective of at least an impression what the emissions are going to be in this year or eventually in the year before, and also because monitoring is not only about impact, is also monitoring about implementation of the action plans and of the investment plans and so on. So we are developing these platforms for monitoring the CCCs and the voluntary agreements with stakeholders in the cities. And we are also delivering as a byproduct a practical handbook for climate action, so that cities can step through some barriers that the initial ones were facing, and that they understood how to solve them. And so we are going to do like a handbook with procedures, very detailed procedures. That's the idea for the most successful climate actions that were implemented in the cities. And that's it. I think I will be glad to discuss this further, and I will give back the floor to you, Nupur.
Thank you so much, Maria, on your whole journey with the Climate City contracts, the commitments, the action plans, and the investment plans. I now hand over to Santtu Karhinen. Santtu, please, the floor is yours. Take us through
Okay, thank you. Yeah, about the Finnish case, Maria gave a great background on the emissions calculations principles, basically, but I will continue from here, giving the details of what we are doing in Finland. Yeah, so my name is Santtu Karhinen. I'm a senior researcher at this government research institute called Finnish Environment Institute. And if you go to the next slide, so in Finland, we basically have been mandated to calculate these municipal level greenhouse gas emissions for several years now. So the first time that we did these calculations for all of the municipalities in Finland was 2021. I think that was the first time, and our this monitoring system now it covers years from 1990 and 2005 up until 2023 right now, and currently we are calculating 24 emissions. So we do all these calculations free of charge for all of the municipalities in Finland, and there are over 300 municipalities here, and our calculations that we do and we provide the data for, it includes let's say over 90 emission sectors, aggregated into different levels, of course. And in our calculations, we also follow the principles laid out in the greenhouse gas protocol. Our calculations also, they are aligned with the national greenhouse gas inventories. So when we sum up all the emissions sector by sector across all the municipalities, we basically end up with the national inventory figures. In our data, you can we can see what are the emissions related to emission trading system and also the effort sharing sector. Our publications are done twice a year. First, we provide this preliminary data. And the next publication will be in November this year, and then the final results will be available, let's say, next May or so. And you can find the all the data in that link, and you can also see the results in English in that service. If you go to the next slide, so we try to utilize as much as possible this, let's say, bottom-up perspective. So we, for example, have all the vehicles in our data that are used in Finland. We have all the buildings. We calculate the emissions for all of the vehicles and buildings. But in some cases, we do not have like a specific local data of the, let's say, machinery that are used. So then we utilize this top-down perspective where we utilize different kinds of activity data that correlates with the emissions creation. Then if you go to the next slide, in addition to the monitoring, we also maintain and develop this kind of a scenario tool that the municipalities in Finland can utilize when they compile their climate plans. So for each of the municipality in Finland, there is this kind of a business as usual scenario as a starting point for their work, where, for example, these different kinds of national energy strategies, climate strategies, the actions laid out in those plans, they are regionalized into all of the municipalities. We also consider population forecasts, legislation, and then we update these baseline scenarios regularly to reflect the decisions made in these different plans and strategies. And then the users of the scenario tool, they can then define new actions so that they can reach their set targets. Next one, please. We can see the historical development, and then on the right-hand side, we can see the forecast to 2030. And if you then go forward, and then we provide also these different kinds of indicator data from the calculations. So we can then forecast what if some kind of a national policy change is made. So how that policy change would affect different regions in Finland. And then the next one. And then this, our monitoring and scenarios, they are used, this is an example, used as a background in this loan that is given to the municipalities, or the municipalities can apply for it from the largest municipal financier in Finland. So this is like a basic general purpose budget loan that is not like tied to any specific project. And this way we try to like provide incentives to municipalities to conduct their climate work with this economic incentive. So basically we give for each of the municipality, we define the emissions reduction pathway aligned with national targets. And then if some municipality performs better, it can get a margin discount on its loan. But the purpose here, or the prerequisite, is that the municipality applying for the loan, it has a valid climate plan. And then the last one here says basically the same thing as I said before. So all of those things that we define in the loan mechanism, they are set out so that if all of the municipalities would basically follow these emissions reductions pathways, then Finland as a whole, as a nation, would also reach its climate targets. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Santu. This is very exciting because you've taken us through monitoring, scenario building, and then sustainable lending also. So it's a really great cycle. I now invite Svea Heinemann, who is actually a city advisor for some of the German cities within the mission, the EU Cities Mission. Svea, please take us through what is your experience been with Germany. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, happy to give you like inside view into the workings of the city's mission, which I'm supporting as a city advisor for the last 3 years. Next slide, please. The EU Cities Mission, as some of you might know, is a large-scale European initiative. It encompasses 112 cities from all EU member states, plus from EU associated countries that have an association agreement with the European Union. The targets or the goals of the mission are to support 100, deliver 100 climate neutral and smart cities by 2030. And the other goal is that these cities become experimentation hubs where pathways are experimented with, and the learnings from this experimentation is shared with all other European cities so that they can follow suit and become climate neutral by 2050 as the latest. The European Commission has, in an open procedure, in an expression of interest, selected these 112 cities from almost 400 applications, and these are some of the most ambitious cities across Europe. They don't include all the most ambitious cities, but they include a very good selection from a range, smaller and larger municipalities, metropolitan regions, from all geographies within Europe. The Climate City contract is the central governance tool. So each selected city for the mission was going through a comprehensive process of preparing the Climate City contracts and submitting them to the European Commission for review. Next slide, please. If you compare these two slides, the previous one and this one, the EU Cities Mission is like direct cooperation between the European level and the municipal level. But in Germany, there is added complexity because we are in a federal system of government. So there are at least 2 more layers which need to be considered. One is the national level, and the other one is the regional level. And municipalities, they are basically within the mandate or remit of the regional level, so the 16 federal states. So from that is basically stemming a certain sense of patchwork, because every state can come up with their own climate laws and set various targets and mandates for municipalities. Climate is also the exemption where the national government, the Bund, can directly support cities and is doing so through various funding schemes for climate projects, but also for providing supportive infrastructure. For instance, in terms of funding research organizations to prepare standards for GHG monitoring. So next slide, please. When we speak of the mission, it's important to state that the cities in Germany have not been starting from scratch. There's a long line of work in terms of GHG monitoring and reporting and evaluation. It's very decentralized, though. It's very similar to what we have heard about Portugal, that it follows international standards and methods. But there is no general requirement for municipalities to report their GNG inventories to a central place. There's also not, as we have heard in the Finnish case, a central organization that is doing the calculation for the German municipalities. So it's very much German municipalities doing this on their own, and many municipalities are using a German-wide standard. Next slide, please. That means that for the Climate City contract, the given structure for the EU Cities mission, which consists of 3 parts: the general commitments, action plan, and investment plan, which are highly integrated and interconnected. The cities were basically using their national GHG monitoring systems to prepare the baseline and calculate the emissions gap on their own. So it was more about a harmonization also of between the national systems at the requirement of the EU Cities mission, and also a gap like where gases or scopes were, for instance, not covered by the national system. There, the cities also don't have a method they can work with or don't have like guidance on the data they can use. So these are still gaps for the cities. Next slide, please. However, what is in place is the BISCO standard, a national GHG accounting standard, which was actually developed by an organization that was mandated and tasked with developing a tool that is used by local climate teams to prepare GHG inventories. So it helped with harmonizing the different approaches and guiding cities how to use it, where to get the data from, etc. Next slide, please. As the previous speakers also have said, this is always looking backwards with a 2-year lag. And one of the gaps that we also discovered during the preparation of the Climate City contracts was that there were no good standards in place at the time to also calculate the impacts of measures in the action plans. So this gap has been filled since by a pre-standard called DIN-SPEC, which has been prepared by a number of national and international organizations engaged in the preparation. It has been published in German and in English, so it's available for everyone on the website given here. Next slide, please. The Climate City contracts, they provide really a wealth of information as they are very comprehensive. They also describe the national policies in place also looking forward, of course, what is on the horizon, also in terms of transposing European policies to the national level. There are, however, a number of gaps, really. So the whole linkage to climate investments or also loans financing has not yet been made. There's not even a standard definition what actually consists a climate investment, constitutes a climate investment, apologies. Then, further alignment, for instance, is needed with the EU mission requirements and filling the data gaps. Also working with national authorities to support the cities on doing that, and also integrating it into the standards as they are being further developed. As also the first speaker said, tightening these feedback loops so that there is a faster feedback and cities don't need to wait for 2 years until they have the data. Also getting more granularity, also getting feedback and being able to monitor actions or packages of actions in the climate plans. So we are still at the beginning of analyzing the CCCs for also the German level and learning from them and bringing this forward also to national authorities. That's it from my side.
Thank you very much, Svea. This was a great, very quick recap of many years of work on the Climate City contract. So thank you very much for taking us through the journey. And Nicholas, it's you and your inspiring work within Concito to take us through your journey and the really amazing things you've been sharing with me before. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Nupur. So I will tell you a bit about the work we've done with local climate action in Denmark and with our work with monitoring to support local climate action in particular. Next slide, please. So Concito is an independent think tank based in Copenhagen. We've been around since 2008 and we have 6 units working on different topics. Next, please. And I'm working in the cities unit, and broadly speaking, we work with supporting cities and local governments in their environmental work and climate action. But in particular, here today, what's relevant is that we are first part of a consortium called the Climate Alliance in Denmark, which essentially has supported all municipalities in Denmark on a voluntary basis to develop climate action plans, including climate adaptation and climate mitigation towards net zero by 2050 at the latest. According to the framework and approach used by C40 cities, C40 is a global network of major metropolis working with climate mitigation and adaptation. So we have adapted their framework so that it can be used in Denmark by smaller municipalities. We're also a member of the network called Capacities within the EU, which essentially means that we are a national platform working with supporting the implementation of the EU mission that was previously mentioned by Svea. Next, please. So a few words about how local climate action is working in Denmark. Local municipalities in Denmark are quite large and have quite a lot of resources and a strong mandate compared to most other countries. So they have big responsibilities. A lot is left up to them, basically. And that includes work with climate mitigation and adaptation, where essentially a lot of what they are doing is done on a voluntary basis. But we had this initiative a few years ago called DK 2020, which then gave birth to the Climate Alliance, where progressively all municipalities worked on implementing the approach to climate action planning that C40 cities developed. Next, please. So the structure of this initiative was that it was a real sort of multi-level structure where at the national level, Concito and C40 provided a lot of knowledge and support to the development and monitoring and implementation of the plans. Then in each region of Denmark, there was a regional office that was sort of the first contact point to the municipalities when developing their plan, that helped them essentially iterate and develop their plan over time. And then each municipality also had their own staff working on the development of these plans. Next, please. As a result of this initiative, we, in several cohorts, progressively, we had every single municipality in Denmark volunteering to develop one of these climate action plans. The last ones are just finalized them this year. So it took a while, but they are now all on board, and we are working a lot more with implementation and monitoring now that these plans have been developed. Next, please. So focusing more specifically with monitoring, since that's today's topic, we have this year, Concito has for the first time developed a monitoring system and published a status report on climate action in Denmark to essentially analyze how the implementation is going, how the implementation of these climate action plans is going, but also to learn what is needed to fill the gaps. So in which aspects are we going fast enough? In which aspects are we lagging behind? And what do we need to do as partners in the Climate Alliance to move things forward? And we have developed several resources for this work. One is a publicly available platform, data platform, with essentially key performance indicators on local climate action specific to each Danish municipalities. So you can find this data openly available on Concito's website. Unfortunately, it's only in Danish at the moment, but the Danish municipalities can go there. We have about, I think it's a dozen or maybe 15 pages like the one you see here, with indicators that are not just greenhouse gas emissions, but looking at specific detailed aspects that are considered essential to the transition. So here on the screen, you see key indicators about the building stock, the area of different types of building, the share of buildings with different levels of energy performance certificates, the growth in the building stock over time, and so on. And this can be disaggregated by municipality. And similarly, for forestry, we have indicators about the area of forests. For agriculture, we have indicators about the number of the livestock essentially in Denmark. We have indicators about the share of different modes of transportation in person kilometers in the municipalities. So looking at specific key points that we need to work on to accomplish this transition, and not just the total CO2 value, essentially. And this can be done because one enabler there is that there is quite a lot of publicly available data in Denmark. And the data that is not publicly available, in some cases, we were actually able to request it from partners, and they were willing to provide it. So we were quite fortunate with getting our hands on relevant data. Next, please. Another thing we have developed there is that we have sent a survey to all the municipalities to ask them to report on their climate action. We asked them how they've organized their work, how many work hours or man hours are they spending on this, which departments are involved. And the biggest part of this work, we ask them to list the actions that they are implementing to fulfill their plans and their commitments. And we have essentially stored and analyzed their answers in another data platform, where the idea is that municipalities can now go there, do a little quick keyword search. For instance, if they have problem with rising groundwater, which is a common problem, a common source of flooding in Denmark. If they have problem with groundwater, they can look for groundwater there and see, okay, which are the municipalities that have implemented actions related to groundwater? And you can click on each action and see some details, but maybe a description of the barriers they are facing as well. And then perhaps they can take inspiration from each other. That was the idea, at least. Two important points here I'd like to mention. One is that a big challenge is that the actions the municipalities are reporting don't always fit the ones that they promised to implement in their plans. As in, they are reporting actions that were not part of their plans, and there are actions that they promised to implement that they are not reporting on. So that's quite a big problem if we're looking at the implementation of the plans. And in hindsight, this makes me think that the plans should have been a little more structured, where ideally we would like essentially to have an easily accessible list of, this is the action we promised to implement, this is the current status, this is the barriers we're facing, and so on. Now the development of the plans and the monitoring of the actions have been quite disconnected, and it takes a lot of work to try to connect them. We've had people reading through the plans and listing all the actions manually. Is tremendous amount of manual work. This is a good use case for AI tools. There's one other company that's working with the municipalities that has developed an AI a chatbot, basically. I think it's based on ChatGPT, where they can essentially ask questions relating to the content of the plans, and the chatbot will, for instance, you can ask which municipalities are working with groundwater again, or which municipalities promise to work with groundwater in their plans, and the chatbot will give you some examples, and importantly, it will link you to a specific page in the specific plan of the municipality, so you can actually check that it's not making stuff up, which is otherwise a common problem with AI tools. So I think AI, that's a good use case for AI when we are working with very large amounts of unstructured text. And finally, a challenge I'd like to mention with this is we see a big reporting fatigue in Denmark. Now we're working on the next iteration of our monitoring, and the municipalities have made it very, very clear that they will not answer such a big survey a second time. So we are doing a lot of work on simplifying it and on sending them a survey where, as much as possible, we have pre-filled the answers based on what they answered previously, so they can only change for the questions where the status has changed, essentially. So this is essentially, we've used a lot of goodwill, and now we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them. Next, please. One point of improvement I'd like to mention is monitoring the work on climate change adaptation, where we do have an overview of extreme weather events that have been reported by municipalities over the last year. That's the figure I'm showing here. Next, please. Actually, can you click a few more times? Can you click 3 more times? Thank you. We are lacking good indicators for climate change adaptation. So next year, we're going to work on trying to develop a more agreed upon method on how do we actually track progress on adaptation measures, And especially we need a registry, some sort of repository showing where adaptation measures have been implemented. And ideally a method to assess how much this has reduced the risk for especially flooding, which is a problem in Denmark. We are not able to track this at the moment, but this is a big point of improvement. Next, please. So one last slide, just to mention that we do have at the national level a reporting of Denmark's climate impact with a lot of KPIs as well. And the municipalities have access to a tool to make their greenhouse gas inventories as well. And we are using data from this inventory tool in our monitoring, but we don't have a good alignment with the national monitoring, actually close to no alignment. We're using some national data, some data from national registries, but we are not particularly aligned with national inventories and so on, in the same way that Santu mentioned for Finland. So that's also a point of improvement. In general, in Denmark, we have done a lot of bottom-up work, but we are lacking a link with the national authorities and with the national monitoring system, and that's what we're trying to work on as well. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you very much to all the Nicholas. Thank you very much to you and to all our panelists today. So I have a very quick question, and you can read the chat because there's some questions coming up for some of you. But basically, Maria, we start with you. Some quick low-hanging fruit for our audience where you feel those who don't have that level of data or very evolved systems, where can they start? And this question is for everyone. You can also quickly put in if you have an ask to your national government or to the EU in general about how this alignment between national and subnational can be strengthened. And I would request you to take maximum 2 minutes each, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Nupur. On your first question, I would say that eventually, of course, that data is very necessary for us to pursue a consistent path. But I would say on the governance level, at cities level, it should be some collective efforts and not to be, each one going in their direction. So, and I think in that sense that our platform Cities for Climate is a good example of that, because it was the initiative of the cities that joined forces together to have the common framework. So I think that's low-hanging fruits, as long as people are able to collaborate and have the vision to unite their efforts. On aligning, I would say that we are in Portugal, we are in a moment where this alignment eventually is coming up. So I would, of course, that some alignment and to support the work that platforms as us are doing, we need we need money, so we need to align that, of course, with the national bodies. But further than that, we should have common goals and common challenges, and so eventually coming with the labels and working around national labels could be something that the governments engage the governments more, and then connecting them to the European level, and eventually and we could go out of the European borders. And I would like to give my greetings to the two Portuguese speaking countries that are here, Cape Verde and Mozambique, and we are also trying to work with the Portuguese speaking countries to spill over this knowledge, and of course respecting the different contexts. But I think there should be an international alliance in this.
Thank you. That is brilliant. So we've gone global already. Asantu, the floor is yours. Would you like to share some thoughts with us?
Yeah, I would basically continue to what Maria said about the harmonization of these emissions calculations across municipalities within a country. That is very important thing. It ensures basically the comparability and tracking with respect to the national inventories. And again, of course, there are differences in data availability across different countries. But I think the first version it doesn't need to be perfect. So the most important thing is just to start with the work and then improve when you go on. And also there are countries, for example, Finland, Denmark, Portugal, where these kinds of calculation mechanisms and monitoring systems may be already in place. So just feel free to contact and discuss. So what should be the first steps to start working with those monitoring systems? So I think this is the most important thing in my mind. And also I would also like to say that even though in Finland we have all the data available, it is not necessarily utilized when implementing climate policies on a national level. So it is important to try to get the information into correct places, into the national policy making. So that is the second part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well said. Policy is very, very critical to making that large-scale change. Svea, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I would say I think implementation is more important than trying to be perfect at monitoring. So I agree, it's important to start. If there's no standards in place, I look which standards could be used and where the data could come from. But there's generally already quite a bit in place at this point in time. The German standard is also embodying the principle that it basically looks at the level of municipalities and includes things or suggests to include things that are in the direct competencies of municipalities, which is also varying, of course, across countries. So I think that's really a good starting point. I forgot to mention one thing in the German context, which is like a national dashboard that is also now available. But again, coming also bottom up and from like another organization, not really a government body, but very much also bottom up driven, which gives a very good overview about Germany. So this is also, a really good tool for municipalities to benchmark themselves against others, and can be quite motivating also for the start.
Thank you, Svea. Thank you very much. Nicholas, the last word is yours, and I can close after that. Thank you.
I will very briefly say I agree with what others have said, that it's not the most important is not to assess everything perfectly. We know in a lot of cases what are the critical aspects to climate action. So better to monitor a few aspects correctly than to do everything perfectly at once. And I just want to point out, for instance, that in Brazil, C40 has also had an approach a little similar to what we've done in Denmark, trying to implement climate action plan in 100 cities. No, 50 cities, sorry. But they have done it in a very streamlined and simplified way where the goal was within a year to have at least each city have one mitigation action and one adaptation action in the implementation phase. And I think that's a very smart way of doing it, to try to move quickly to action and then improve incrementally over time.
That is brilliant. Thank you very much. I saw some very nice questions about agility, in our planning. And to respond to that question, I completely agree, because we can plan, but the situation and the scenarios are changing so much that we need to be agile. We need to capture data on what we had planned, capture what is done against it, and yet build in that flexibility and agility to allow cities and communities to continue acting and implementing, innovative solutions. So that's a very good point. And there was another question about adaptation and mitigation together. And I thought Nicholas brought out two very important points on that, which was that the work that they're doing is across the two aspects. It's not just focused on only mitigation or adaptation, and also about the indicators that benefit both, whether it's health, whether it's pollution, whether it's all of those things. So that's really, really critical. Thank you, Maria, for your cases, because I really enjoyed how the cities that did not get selected to the mission set up their own team, decided to do something about becoming climate neutral proactively. So they weren't waiting for the government to come to their aid. They decided to proactively get on the ground, and they decided to proactively then go back at some level, to the national governments asking for what they need to ask. And for all of you to know that the EU submits one NDC globally, which means all the countries represented on this panel and others have to contribute to that one NDC of the EU. Svea, thank you very much for your contribution, because I think we have been mentioning the city's mission, the Climate City contracts very openly, but you gave a very good overview. And I also want to thank you for bringing this whole concept of standardization, because we talked about a lot of national platforms, but it's so important to have standardized, reporting, standardized elements in our indicators, etc., so that everyone's not talking a different language. There is some standardization across national and the EU and also global scenarios. And Santu, a very inspiring and best practice case. I assume that all of you are going to get emails from our audience. I really enjoyed the fact how you have encouraged cities to align with the national mandate by putting in the idea of finance, because that's something which is, it's important, it's critical, but it's also helping us, move forward, get the required support to actually make this alignment strong. So I'm going to finish with the words alignment, agility, and action. And I just want to thank the audience for being engaged, putting out your little emojis of claps and wows and hearts to encourage all of us. But I want to say it's so critical that whatever is the real work that's happening on ground, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our cities, needs to be reaching back to the national level where the commitments are being made. And this is going to actually help us maximize impact globally. It's going to help us secure that funding and support which our cities are struggling with currently. It's going to help us become more ambitious in our action, in our mandates, in our goals. And it's going to, at the end, also bring in policy coherence, both at a national level, at an EU level, but also globally. So thank you, everyone. And last but not the least, to the fabulous team that worked from behind, Charlotte, Kata, and also my colleague Olga. Thank you for your support. And thank you to the daring speakers on this Daring City webinar. And thank you to the audience. Goodbye.